everybody. Welcome to this edition of the Shepherd's Voice. Happy New Year in this brand new year, 2025. And I want to turn it over to the host of the program, the Bishop of Trenton, Bishop David M. O'Connell. Hi, Bishop. Welcome. Happy
Hello,
New Year.
Happy
Merry
New Year
Christmas.
to you and all our listeners. That's great. Did you have a nice
Yeah,
Christmas?
very peaceful, very nice. It
Yeah.
was a lovely time. And just, Christmas in our house with Cheryl's position as a director of music, that's always a busy time for
Oh,
her.
yeah, that's
So,
a busy time for her. Yeah, it's for priests too.
Yeah.
During this Advent season is a busy time. But it was a wonderful Christmas. Had the chance to celebrate Christmas masses in 3 of our parishes,
did?
which is good. I was at Manalapan St. Thomas More for the 4 o'clock on Christmas Eve. Packed.
Mm.
The church was packed, and they have a beautiful big auditorium there.
hmm
You couldn't get a seat. There
Good.
was so many people there. It was wonderful to see
Mhm.
it. I was just so delighted and had a really nice celebration for Christmas Eve. Then at 10 o'clock, a couple hours later, I was over at Our Lady of Sorrows, St. Anthony's Church, actually the bigger church, to celebrate their Christmas Mass, Christmas Eve Mass. And we had bilingual. We had French and English.
French. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of Haitian
Oh, okay.
folks in that community there in that parish,
hmm
and so I wanted to celebrate mass with them, and so they prefer although they're speaking Creole is the language that
Mhm.
they speak. They prefer French
Hmm.
for the more formal things like the liturgy
Mhm.
of mass and so
Mhm.
on and so forth. So I had a lot of training in French, so I was able to go back and forth a little bit. The homily I gave was all in French. And then I thought afterwards, because I looked out to the crowd, I said, well, there's about 80% of these are not French speaking.
Right.
So I said, next time I said to the pastor, Monsignor Gervasio, I said, the next time I do it, I think I'm going to go flip back and forth between English and French. But it was
Now,
beautiful.
were you reading it or were you actually just?
No, I wrote the homily.
Uh-huh.
I write my homilies
Yeah,
a month in
yeah,
advance,
yeah,
so I wrote and give me a chance to go through it, make sure everything was correct.
hmm
And I do pretty well. I stumble a little bit every once in a while with some of the words because your tongue is not used to
Right.
a different language.
Right,
I
right.
find the same thing in Spanish. When I celebrate Mass in
Mhm.
Spanish, I can do it,
hmm
but every once in a while I get stuck on a word and then you get a little frustrated.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
But it was a beautiful choir. The choir there is magnificent. It was a combination of their parish choir and the Haitian community
Oh,
choir.
wow.
It was beautiful. And then the next day I was over at Heightstown for Christmas Day for their Mass, and again, packed. It was just so nice to see it full church,
hmm
and had an opportunity to preach. Of course, a different sermon. I write a different sermon for every Mass.
hmm
I don't repeat myself, but it was beautiful. And after my Mass, there was the Spanish Mass, the Spanish community there, and they were all lined up just to say Merry Christmas.
Oh,
It
nice.
was really very nice
hmm
to
hmm
be with them as I was leaving the church. They were coming into the church for the next Mass. So it really was a beautiful, beautiful Christmas
Yeah.
celebration. During Advent, I stop at different parishes.
Mhm.
I try to visit parishes during Advent and Lent, get a chance to see parishes for something other than confirmation. So it's a great opportunity there. I was there for 4 parishes during Advent. So looking forward to it, and then we have the rest of the Christmas season, in which we're still
Yes,
making our way through, which is a beautiful.
that's right. Because in Europe, the Epiphany is a bigger
Big.
celebration even than the 25th.
Well, that's true, and not only in Europe but in South America. A lot of my priests who are Colombian or from South America, this is the time of year where they go.
hmm
They go visit home,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I've been getting a number of emails and messages from
Mhm.
them. I'll be gone for 2 weeks,
hmm
but this is a big celebration for them. Before Christmas, though, this Advent for some reason was particularly busy and
Busy,
quick.
right? I think it went by very fast.
It was so fast, yeah. And we had a couple nice things. We had, of course, the Filipinos have the Simbangabi
hmm
masses throughout the diocese, and for those 9 days, and that's a Filipino tradition, And the Mass of the Rooster, they in their home country up before dawn and celebrate Mass and pray. So I was able to go to the closing of the Simbangabi masses at St. Robert's Co Cathedral, and beautiful mass and a great opportunity. The choir, they had a Filipino choir, was just terrific.
Mm.
Beautiful music that they provided. Then afterwards, they have like a big meal,
Mm-hmm.
a reception, and a good meal. It was all Filipino food.
Mm.
It was nice, and I have a number of priests who are from the Philippines
Mm.
who are wonderful priests, and so they were there. And there's a tradition, for the Simbang Gabi, and that is the bishop starts the entertainment section with a chicken dance.
Oh, really? No.
So even with my leg, I got up to do the chicken dance, and then the radio guy, the MC, I confirmed him about 10 years ago.
Really?
So it was nice to see him again, and he was playing all kinds of crazy music. And we had
Uh-huh.
a wonderful time.
Good.
I did the YMCA dance.
Oh, you
know,
did.
so we were having a good time.
Good
Simbang
for
Gabi,
them.
look
Good
forward
for
to
you.
it. And then the next night we had on September 21st or December 21st, we had the mass for our seminarians every
Mhm.
year before Christmas. Once they get off from the seminary, they get their break.
Mm-hmm.
I have an opportunity to have them celebrate mass for them. And if there are any of the seminarians who are receiving candidacy prior to holy orders, then I confer the right of candidacy. And then we have a nice meal. This year we were at Sacred Heart in Trenton with Monsignor Dennis Appledight. He always does a wonderful job.
Mm-hmm.
Had a beautiful mass, and it was great to see the seminarians, get a chance to talk to them. We have 8 now, and maybe before the mass, I met with vocation prospects, those who were in discerning. So
Mhm.
we had about 8 of those guys
Good.
before, and I got a chance to greet them and meet them, wish them well. And then I went over to the seminarians' dinner, and we had dinner together there. It was great.
Mm.
Great night, and before you knew it, Christmas was here. And
Right. All
it
of a
just
sudden.
it just seems so quick. This
It
year.
did
I
go
don't know
by
whether
quick.
it's my imagination.
You know, it's a nice tradition they do in Rome, and I don't know that many parishes do it. Is the Bombinelli, the third
Oh yeah, we
Sunday of
did
Advent.
Bombinelli at where was I? We did Bombinelli. I was at one parish. I did the blessing of the baby.
Where you bring in the infant that you would put in your.
Oh,
in your
it was
nativity.
at Hightstown.
Okay.
It was at Hightstown. We did the
I think it's a lovely, lovely tradition.
It is a
It's-
beautiful tradition,
I
and
like that.
people, I love to see the little children coming up with the baby,
Right,
for the
right.
blessing.
Yeah,
and-
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Just adds to the whole anticipation of the celebration.
yeah, and the 2 parishes that did Bombinelli were not Italian parishes,
Yeah,
but it's just a custom that
Yeah,
I guess they saw it somewhere, and
yeah. I think it's a
liked
neat
it.
thing.
Yeah, it was great. And then we had a special event this year, the opening of the Holy Year, the Jubilee
Mhm.
Year, which the church asked to begin here in dioceses throughout the world on December 28th, on the feast of
Mhm.
the Holy Family.
Yeah.
And so I did at the cathedral on December 28th, on the feast of the vigil of the feast of the Holy Family.
Mhm.
I began the Jubilee Year, and then the next day at St. Robert's at the Co-Cathedral.
Mhm.
Pope Francis last year on May the 9th issued his Bull of Indiction, it's called. It's a decree that he issued calling for the Holy Year for this year. The Holy Years are celebrated, the ordinary Holy Year is
Mhm.
celebrated every 25 years.
Mhm.
It's hard to believe that John Paul II is the last one to have
Right. Yeah.
ordinary Holy Year.
Right.
We had a Holy Year in the interim with Pope Francis,
Right.
the Year of Mercy.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote a decree, and the decree was entitled "Hope Does Not Disappoint," from letter to the Romans,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a beautiful thought and a beautiful message that he gives. And the motto of this year's Holy Year is "Pilgrims of Hope."
Mhm.
Pilgrims of Hope. So the practice of a Jubilee year, and maybe some of our listeners are not aware of how this got started.
Mhm.
It's got its roots in the Bible, in the Old Testament. Jewish tradition, in the book of Leviticus, the Jubilee year in the Bible was every 50 years, was
Mhm.
to be celebrated in the community. And it was an opportunity. The slaves were freed. There was an opportunity for that.
Debts were forgiven.
Prisoners, debts were forgiven.
I called my mortgage company. They're not buying into that, though.
Yeah, they didn't go for that idea. did
No,
they?
no.
But the idea here is to manifestation of God's mercy, to announce liberty and freedom. And so that custom was rooted in the custom of the Jubilee year, rooted in the biblical tradition. The Catholic tradition we celebrate every 25 years, as I mentioned, and during the Jubilee year, Catholics may be granted the remission of, of sins, the temporal punishment attached to sins through indulgences, and indulgences are granted under certain conditions, confession and uh, renunciation of sin and receiving Holy Communion, special prayers for the Holy Father. And the Pope was very generous in granting the permissions for indulgences. And the Jubilee year in the Catholic tradition is meant to encourage the faithful to make a pilgrimage. The pilgrimages are very common in other religious traditions, but not as much in the Catholic tradition. But the encouragement there is, and of course, the prime destination is Rome, where the Holy Year is Holy Door is at St. Peter's Basilica and is opened on this year it was opened, I think, on Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve, yeah, we broadcast that.
You did, you brought
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And Pope Francis, it's kind of really a very touching tradition. He knocks at the door.
Right.
The Holy Door is only opened during the Holy Year.
Right.
Which is every 25 years. He knocks on the door, and the archpriest comes, opens the door, and he proceeds in. And of course, he's disabled. He's handicapped, and so that compromised a little bit of the movement. But he's a fighter. He
Yes.
went right through it. And
Yep.
during the Jubilee year, like the Old Testament, the forgiveness of sin is emphasized, but not only forgiving of your own sins, but for all of us to think about forgiving others for their sins as well. Renew kind of a focus on the spiritual life, and to come back into a healthy, good relationship with God. The Jubilee is an opportunity.
So the two holy doors in this diocese are the cathedral and the co-cathedral?
They are, but we didn't celebrate holy doors.
Okay.
This year. The Holy Father only wanted the holy doors in Rome
Okay.
to be called holy doors.
I
So
see.
St. Peter's and St. Mary Major's, of course, the Pope's Cathedral of St. John Lateran, and St. Paul's outside the walls. And this year, for the first time, he designated a holy door at Rabiba Prison. So it was kind of an interesting turn there, where he focused on the prison and the inmates in the prison, and talking about freedom and release from sin and so on and so forth. So he did that on the 26th, the day after Christmas. He went there, and it's, as I say, proclaimed by the church every 25 years. And it's set aside really to let people give a shot in the arm to their faith and to their practices. The holy doors were identified by the Pope. We had an extraordinary Jubilee year. I don't know if you remember.
I think it was 2015, I think it was.
Yeah, it was Your Mercy that he had. And so we did have holy doors scattered throughout the diocese and throughout the counties and so on and so forth, but we just didn't do that. However, in his decree, the Pope asked the diocesan bishop to celebrate at his cathedral and at the co-cathedral.
Okay.
So there were special prayers. I read a section from the Bull of Indiction, and we went to the baptismal font, and we renewed baptismal promises, and then we sprinkled the gathered assembly with holy water, and began with the Gloria, began the Mass with the Gloria. So it was very nice. This Pope, as I mentioned, Pope St. John Paul II, this was something that was very important to him. Pope Benedict, of course, and now Pope Francis has been, although I don't think there was a holy year during Pope Benedict's tenure. I don't think so. Pope John Paul II was the last of the ordinary years.
Yeah.
And now Pope Francis. So beautiful, and we will continue with the Jubilee year throughout this coming year. And we had a committee. I put a committee together. I don't know whether I mentioned this before. But we put a committee together of people from the diocese, clergy and laity, to come up with ideas so that the parishes could have some celebrations.
Yeah.
So we did. We came up, we put together a little kind of a document so that we could hand it out to the different parishes and hope that they will have special celebrations during the course of the year. Beautiful. The idea of this Jubilee year, as the Catholics celebrate it, goes back to 1300.
Mm.
So it's Pope Boniface
Mm.
at that time had started this tradition and these.
I know there are a lot of pilgrimages too going on. I see Father Jason is going to Rome. I think is he? Did I see that somewhere?
I don't. Father Jason.
But we've seen a number of pilgrimages.
Oh yeah,
within the diocese.
there are people already on
Yeah,
pilgrimage.
yeah. yeah.
Today,
Mhm.
Monsignor Siriani and Father Dan Pirano, the pastor of St. Thomas More Parish,
Mhm.
and a large group are already
Already.
on pilgrimage.
Oh wow. Okay.
And they'll. I know because I had approached the Holy See to get permission for Father Monsignor Siriani and Father Pirano to concelebrate with the Pope for the Feast of the Epiphany, which I did last year for the group that I took.
Mm-hmm.
But believe it or not, 1 year ago today, I had a heart attack.
I was thinking about that
It
today.
was today. It was January
last year?
3rd.
Wow.
And
right.
so I got the chance. I was looking at the pictures this morning of my visit with the Pope in the morning, earlier in the day,
Mm-hmm.
and just remembering that. Oh, it was just a tough couple of days,
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was a year ago.
A year,
ago
wow.
today. It's amazing. And so, Co-Cathedral and St. Thomas More have a group that they're.
Mm-hmm.
Next week there's another group going, and the week after that's another group going. So
no,
a lot of
yeah,
pilgrimages throughout the diocese. So it's great to see it. You mentioned Father Jason. I think his pilgrimage is in the fall.
I think it's in the fall, and I think I saw one from Deacon Michael Lee Foster sent me a notice from Manalapan. There's also something from there.
Yeah.
I forget when that is, but
But
there are a number of them throughout the year.
35 million people they expect to be visiting Rome.
And Rome's going to be a busy place
A
this
busy
year.
place. I'm having a pilgrimage, but rather than go to Rome, because most of the priests have been to Rome many times,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to Paris.
Yeah.
I have a meeting scheduled there with my Order, the Vincentian
Mm-hmm.
Congregation of the Mission, and they've asked for the Vincentian bishops throughout the world to come together after Easter.
Okay.
So I agreed to go to the meeting, and then I mentioned it to a few priests, and they said, "Oh, can we come with you?" I said, "Well, why don't I make it a pilgrimage? We'll go to Rome, we'll go to Notre Dame, we'll have Mass at Notre Dame, and have a nice visit in Paris." So we'll divert attention from them. And that week actually is the week for the canonization of Blessed Carlo Acutis.
Okay.
The end of that week. I'm leaving here on the 22nd of April, right after Easter, and then at that week's end will be the canonization.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Father Brian Woodrow is the pastor of St. Dominic's, where there is our diocesan shrine for Blessed Carlo, is going.
Oh, he is.
He's going to leave our group to fly down to Rome and participate in.
Okay.
So that'll be
nice.
That'll be a great time. This past week, it was a very important thing. When the Pope spoke on New Year's Day, he gave a very strong homily and great support for pro-life efforts throughout the world. It's so important. The Pope speaking at St. Peter's during the Mass for Solemnity of Mary, the Mother of God, emphasized the dignity of every person born of woman. And he said, protecting life and caring for wounded life, restoring dignity to the life of every person born of woman is the fundamental basis for building a civilization of peace. Such a beautiful thought and such a compelling thought. So it was great to hear that, and certainly, hopefully, that people will listen to his comments. Feast of the Epiphany, as you mentioned already, that's this coming weekend. The Three Kings, a feast that is celebrated widely, especially in the international scene. Then the Christmas season ends with the Feast of the Baptism of the Lord, and then we go back into ordinary time.
Yeah.
We have, and I think you've probably mentioned it on the show, we have our third annual Mass, Standing Together for Life. When Roe v. Wade was overturned, and the emphasis was placed, or the matter, the pro-life issue was transmitted back to the states for adjudication, and focus. It didn't leave the Washington March for Life I know, but however, the emphasis was put more on the state. So here in the diocese, we have been celebrating a Mass for life, a Thanksgiving for the gift of life for the last 3 years
Hmm.
in January at the same time. You know, a lot of the people who have traditionally been going to Washington for the March for Life, you know, they're older and it's a little
Hmm.
bit more difficult for them to make the trip. So we wanted
Right.
to make sure that we provided an opportunity here,
Hmm.
especially in this state,
Yeah.
which has the most prohibitive
Mm. Yeah.
abortion laws in the country.
Yeah.
So we want to make a statement and we want to make an opportunity for prayer and petition on that day. So we will do it on January the 24th, Standing Together for Life. It's at the Co-Cathedral. Everybody's invited. It's at the Co-Cathedral. It's a Mass. I'll celebrate the Mass at 11 o'clock. And then there's a program that follows the Mass that will be available to our folks.
Is that the same day as the March for Life in Washington?
Yeah.
It is the
It's
same
the
day.
same day, January 24th.
It's a Friday.
Is
It's
it
Friday.
Friday?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
What it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the 26th Sunday is the beginning of Catholic Schools Week.
Okay.
We always got a lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Catholic Schools Week starts. I'll be celebrating Mass at Our Lady of Sorrows, St. Anthony's, on the 26th for our Catholic school children in the diocese, but especially, you know, that parish has a Catholic school,
Mhm.
a great Catholic school. I'll be celebrating there. On the next day, I'll be celebrating at St. Paul's in Princeton, their Catholic Schools Week. On Thursday, I'll be at St. Jerome's in West End,
Mhm.
Long Branch, for Catholic Schools Mass there. Then I'm going to Mount Carmel, School of Mount Carmel in Asbury Park at Mother Mercy Parish. I'll go there on the 30th. So we've got a full week there
Mhm.
celebrating and lifting up our Catholic schools for
Yeah.
everybody's prayer and support. We need to support our Catholic schools. There are a couple of Catholic schools in the diocese that the enrollment is really starting to lag a little
Yeah.
bit, and you know I'm so reluctant
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
close a school. You know, when that happens, I often say it's easier. It would be easier to close the Vatican
Yeah.
than to close a Catholic school.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so difficult, and people they don't realize. You know, it's enrollment. And there's got to be significant enrollment in order to support the work of the Catholic schools
Mhm.
because our parents sacrificed to send their children to
Yeah.
Catholic schools,
Yeah.
and so we've got to support and help those Catholic
Mhm.
schools, promote our Catholic schools. On the 1st of February, we have our annual Diocesan Youth Conference. This year it'll be at Notre Dame High School here in Lawrenceville. And so that'll be a wonderful opportunity. Unfortunately, I won't be able to stay for the day, so I can only greet them in the morning because
Mhm.
I have to get on a train and go to Washington because I've been invited to say the Mass for Catholic Colleges and Universities,
Mm.
the Association of Catholic Colleges and Universities. It's the first time I've been invited to celebrate that Mass in all these years. So
Mhm.
I took advantage of the opportunity to do that, get a chance to speak to the presidents of the Catholic colleges and universities in our country
Mm.
and celebrate Mass with them. And that'll be a great opportunity. So that brings us right up to February, Jim.
Mm.
I don't know what else to report here. I hope I hit
Well,
everything that.
well, you know, it's a busy time of year again, you know, and it just goes by so fast, though. But I know, speaking of Catholic schools, myself having gone through Catholic school 16 years actually, my siblings and I were talking on Christmas about those days, and we're talking a little over 50 years ago.
Yeah.
But we had a diocesan, not I'm sorry, a parish high school. That's and there were 200 kids in every level of the, you know.
Amazing.
But you're talking about baby boomers, so the families were bigger, and
Where was that? Where was
it was in New Brunswick, St. Peter's
Oh,
in New
okay.
Brunswick, which at the time was a part of the Diocese of Trenton. But you know, the class sizes were enormous compared to what you have today.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and there were many Catholic high schools in the area too. So it's a shame if people don't take advantage of that opportunity when there is a Catholic
You know, when you
education.
walk in the door in a Catholic high school, Catholic grammar school too, but Catholic high school, you can sense there's just something different about it. There's a different feel in the air.
Mm-hmm.
The way that the kids greet you, the way that the faculty and students interact. There's just
Mhm.
something very beautiful, very
Yeah.
special about it. And as I say, you know, it's a sacrifice, a huge sacrifice for parents to send their kids to Catholic schools. They don't get assistance from the government the way public schools are
Mm-hmm.
funded by the state. we're not. And so we have to work hard, really, for every penny that we use to support our Catholic schools. We have some parishes that have parish high school.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I think of St. Rose in
That's
Belmar.
right. That's
Has
right.
a Catholic high school there,
Yeah.
and a beautiful Catholic high school, very nice Catholic high
We used to
school.
play them in basketball. That's back in the day.
Did you win? That's why.
I forget what we won.
What was your record?
I remember. Well, we had in St. Peter's, New Brunswick, had John Samoji, who was was the all-time high school basketball scorer.
Wow.
That was our school. So I'm sure those days we probably beat St. Rose and
Wow. Yeah, we have a number of Catholics, St. John Vianney, Notre Dame right here,
Mhm.
and down at Donovan Catholic
Mhm.
is the parish
Mhm.
high school. So we're doing pretty well with our schools. But I always want to put in a plug for our Catholic schools, because some really need a shot in the arm to
Yeah.
get them moving and
Yeah.
get folks to support them.
Yeah. So but you have is it in the fall? Usually you have the big mass where the kids come to the cathedral.
Yeah, I used to have it in the springtime.
Okay.
And we did it either on St. Patrick's Day
Mm-hmm.
or St. Joseph's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it because it gave you kind of a hook
Mm-hmm.
for your homily and for the
Right.
theme of the Mass
Right.
and so on and so
Right.
forth. But then we had a couple of years running where we ran into snowstorms.
Mm-hmm.
So the superintendent, Joanne Tier, she suggested that we move it to the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's usually around the middle of October, around October 12th or so, which coincidentally is the feast day of Blessed Carlo Acutis,
Mhm.
the young man who we're honoring this year with canonization. And we have the Mass. We've had it the last couple of years at the Co-Cathedral.
Mm-hmm.
That's a large facility and a beautiful facility over in Freehold. And we have the Mass there, and the schools send the children on buses to the school, and it's my opportunity to be with them. And I sit with them afterwards, every class,
Mm-hmm.
get a picture. My father used to say, "What do you do for a living in your job?" I said, "Well, I get my picture taken, I think."
Yeah.
But it's always beautiful. My brother, who is the assistant superintendent here in the diocese, he runs the program, does a beautiful job
Mhm.
at organizing and executing the Mass. But that's when we do it. We do it
Yeah,
in the fall.
yeah.
We do it in October. Do it again this year in
Mhm.
October too.
I want to get back to the Jubilee year a little bit too, because I don't want this to miss it. I don't want people to miss the opportunities here. So the Jubilee, you mentioned that the diocese put together suggested.
Yeah,
programs.
we had a committee that met throughout the time preceding the Jubilee in the summer last year, and we tried to brainstorm. What are the best and most meaningful things that we can do? The Holy See, the Jubilee office, sent out a list of things that they wanted, the celebrations. Well, actually, if you went through that list, there would be no breathing room for anything else other
Mhm.
than Jubilee events. So what we did was we took the standard events that the diocese runs. Let me give you an example: the Blue Mass.
Mhm.
The Blue Mass, which we have every year for our police and law enforcement folks. This year it will be the Jubilee Blue Mass
Mhm.
with the theme of hope taken from the documents surrounding the Jubilee.
Mhm.
And we'll do that. The Catholic Schools Mass will be the Jubilee Catholic Schools, and we'll focus on hope. You take those themes, the document that the Holy Father wrote, Hope Does Not Disappoint, is very rich with things that promote and foster hope within the Christian community. So we'll try to take aspects of that and use them in all our celebrations throughout the coming
Mhm.
year. Then parishes will have their own celebrations on the same theme, whatever they choose to do or however they choose to do it. We just try to provide kind of a ready reference for them so that they say, well, what are we doing in the diocese? Or we're doing this, and
Right.
what could we do in our parishes?
Right.
The resource.
When the last Jubilee, the year 2000, the Great Jubilee year, Holy Father Pope John Paul wrote letters to various groups, like
Yeah.
letters to the elderly, letters to women.
Yeah.
Is Holy Pope Francis doing something similar to that?
I'm not sure what he's going to do in terms of that. He seems to be very focused on the Holy Year,
Mhm.
and his talks ever since Christmas Eve have all been on the Jubilee, even the Feast of Holy Family. I mean, he talked about the Jubilee kind of that family is at the heart of what we're celebrating in the Jubilee year. It's
Yeah.
the heart of hope
Mhm.
for the Christian community. It's a beautiful idea,
Yeah.
and
I think his general audiences too now have
yeah,
that
as a
catechesis
theme.
theme. Yeah.
Yeah, as the theme you know, I look at the Vatican website every day. Really, I look at it to make sure I haven't been transferred. But you know, they print the Holy Father's talks and homilies there, and they're beautiful. So good resource to use.
And he was in the wheelchair when he opened the holy door. He was in his wheelchair.
Yeah, he was in the wheelchair.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, so
he,
he's having real.
he knocked on the door, but he was in the
Yeah,
wheelchair.
yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. You know, he just turned 88
I
on
know.
December 17th. I mean, God bless him. You know, he's plugging along, but you
Yeah.
can tell by looking at his face, he seems to be a little bit puffy. Someone said, you know, he has to take
Medication.
medication
Yeah.
and steroids and all of this for
Mhm.
himself. So
Yeah.
you can see that time is taking
Yeah.
its toll on him. But God bless him. You know,
Yeah.
he's plugging away. You
Well,
know,
other than that, he seems,
he's conversant.
Yeah.
You know, I'll tell you, I noticed a year ago, when I was with him, both times I was with him during that time I was in Rome, his demeanor seems to be different. He
Mhm.
seems to be a little more cheerful.
Hmm.
Sometimes you look at him, he looks kind of dour almost, you know.
Yeah.
But he was in very good spirits when I was with him, both times last
Yeah.
year.
Well, there had been. I don't think as much anymore. There had always been criticisms and suspicions on his pontificate and what he was really trying to do, and that seems to have waned a bit. I'm sure that was wearing on him as well.
Oh, I'm sure it does. You know, but I'm not actually. You know, I have a little bit to do with the Catholic Church. You know, I'm not actually convinced that a lot of these criticisms are well founded.
No,
I just think, you know, anybody who's in charge of anything is going to be criticized.
absolutely.
So no matter what, there's somebody's not going to like
Right.
something that you say or do. So that's a fact. And the Holy See it's a bureaucratic organization. I mean, there's a lot of people, a lot of hands touching a lot of pieces, and
Mhm.
you know, maybe some of them have ideas that differ from the rest of us, and I think he absorbs a lot of that criticism
Right.
that might
Right.
come from other places.
Yeah.
Holy See.
Well, but I think that it has waned a bit. But there was a time, when we've talked about it, when there were even organizations, websites that's all they harped on.
Yeah, that's true.
Of course, God took care of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of those are gone now, but
But I mean, even here, I remember you telling me at times people will criticize
Oh, sure.
that we're too supportive of the
you
Pope.
support the Pope.
How could you not support the Pope?
Well,
you know?
I've been saying this for the past year. In fact, I was talking to my nephew, Deacon John, about this, and I said, I'm always trying to be loyal and obedient to the Holy Father. And if that's my greatest infraction when I go before the Lord, is that I was obedient to the man who occupied the chair of Peter,
Exactly.
But if you're wrong, folks who are criticizing him, you're gonna have a lot to answer for.
Yeah, sure.
So he's like when people talk about his position on the environment, and that's not an official church teaching. I mean, per se, where they say he's a little too green in certain areas, when it comes to the environment, and a little too liberal on that.
Well, that's an issue.
It's an opinion, right?
It's an issue that he takes seriously, and whether you agree or don't agree, no one's. There's not magisterial teaching the same way as some of the other teachings
Right.
of the church.
Exactly.
But it's an emphasis that he wants us to take seriously. He wrote an encyclical, Laudato Si,
Right.
on the environment, which honestly, we were one of the few dioceses that came out of the gate supporting that document.
Okay.
I had to celebrate a big mass down at the Beach Chapel
Yeah.
down in Manasquan, and we had a great attendance there, and I've spoken about it, But there are a lot of things that people criticize. But, they've criticized they criticized Pope John Paul II.
Well, that's true. That is
They criticized Pope Benedict.
That's right. That's right.
They criticized Pope Francis,
Yeah.
and, I'm sure everyone feels as I feel, You don't have to agree with me on everything, but you agree with me on what the church teaches.
Right.
And that's really my main focus,
That's it.
is not to take people can be critical of me because I didn't, when the president was shot, the former president was shot at that I didn't make a big deal about it, and I didn't have masses dedicated to that. And I said, what do you want me to say? I asked for prayers, and that's what I wanted. It was nothing, not a political issue, but people can be very critical and almost abusive at times about when you let politics creep into things. So I stay away from it.
Well, and we should, right? I mean, the church should.
It doesn't mean that I don't have an opinion, but the opinion is mine, and I don't feel any obligation as a bishop to share that opinion.
Right.
You want to talk to me about something? I'm happy to talk about it, but I'm not speaking as bishop about any political issue. I don't consider the pro-life movement a political issue, as some people like to paint it as a political issue. It's not. It's a moral issue. It's part of our church's teaching, and we have to promote and foster it. I get that from people. That's all you ever talk about. Then I hear from other people, you never talk about it.
Right. That's what reminded me. You mentioned John Paul. I remember during his pontificate, the liberals said he was too conservative. The conservatives said he was too liberal. He was getting from both sides.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He couldn't win.
You follow, we have our Holy Scripture. We have our church teachings. Those are the foundations of what we preach and talk about and believe in.
Right.
And so we try to be very faithful to those and push away from those things that work against them. And, we live in a time where people are contrary to the teachings of the church, and so we try to promote them as best we can.
Well, I always say, the first hierarchy of the church, 1/12 of them were lousy, and our Lord Himself picked them. So,
the first hierarchy church was Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Well,
we had those three.
That's true.
That community, and and the apostles, there's a ragtag bunch of guys with all their, I'm sure all of them had things that you could criticize, but they basically the love for God and their support for God and Jesus Christ and promotion of Jesus Christ and handing on the gospel. That's what we're all about.
That's right. And I think today people especially, I don't know, for personally, when we talk about the Year of Hope, I even noticed just the attitude of people seems to be a little bit different now. I don't know, it's part of this transition that we're going through in our own country or just the whole universal idea of hope. People seem to be a little bit kinder and gentler in the ones I've come across.
It seems that seems to be true.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard a number of people, visiting parishes who have remarked that things seem different right now, and people seem much more open and supportive of the church and what it teaches, and that's a good thing.
We were watching the Bells of St. Mary with holidays with Bing Crosby. You talk about Catholic schools and that whole theme.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
And it just really presented the Catholic Church and Catholic school system in such a positive light.
Yeah,
and it was made by a major motion picture company, and it won Academy Awards. And it was just so positive on the way it presented the church in that medium of film. It's a shame that we're not going. Well, maybe we are. I don't know. Maybe we're going to be getting back to that.
No, it's time. Maybe people are just tired of nothing.
Of being miserable.
Yeah, they're tired of nothing.
Yeah, right.
So let's put something there. And what we put there is Jesus Christ, our faith in Him, our belief in, our hope in Him, and what He has to offer to the world. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Now, Bishop, you mentioned seminarians. Do we have any priestly ordinations coming up?
We have one ordination this year in June, the beginning of June, at the cathedral, and that is Deacon Alan Bridges, his name is. He was working in Our Lady of Sorrows, St. Anthony Parish here in Hamilton for the summer. That was the summer assignment, and he's finishing up his seminary studies at Mount St. Mary's in Emmitsburg, and he is a deacon, and he'll be ordained a priest. We have no deacons ordained this year, either permanent or transitional, and that's because we've changed the formation system for the permanent diaconate. And so rather than 5 years of training, it's 4. And we've changed the curriculum and how it's being presented and distributed. So this year will be a year where we won't have a class. Next year we'll have 14 or 15 deacons next year.
And you mentioned you had met with some young men who were discerning.
Yeah, from all over the diocese. It was great to meet
young
them.
Men?
Young
high school
guys,
age or college?
No, not high school. Most of them, I think one was in college, and the rest were all out of college,
Okay.
working or in some
Mhm.
other capacity. So
Mhm.
it was nice to meet with them. And I always, when I go somewhere, I always provide the opportunity for them. Do you have any questions? Do you have anything you'd like to
What's
say?
a
And
common question they ask? You think is there something that in their own discernment that I should be looking for, or
one of them asked me an interesting question. They said, "What prompted your vocation?" And since that time, what would you say to yourself at the time you were discerning?
mm-hmm.
Would you what advice would you give yourself
Mm,
looking back on all
okay.
these years?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, geez, that was an interesting
Yeah.
question to
Yeah.
ask. There's no common question, and
Mm-hmm.
it varies from group to group. You know, sometimes when I ask, "Do you have anything you'd like to ask me?" You get a lot of questions
Mm-hmm.
about a lot of different things. Other times there might be a group and they don't ask anything,
Mm-hmm.
and so you end up filling the air with your own thoughts on
Right.
different things.
Right. Right.
This year there was a little back and forth, uh, but in general these were good guys, happy guys, eager to make the move,
Mm.
and I think that's a great thing.
Is there anything in our own, nationally that you've noticed with speaking to other bishops about an increase in vocations, or
It
is
depends
leveled
on the
out? Or
diocese. There's
gosh,
some
yeah.
dioceses that
Mm-hmm.
are doing very well.
Mm-hmm.
Our diocese is not one of them that are doing very well. You know, I don't consider 6 or 7 candidates to be great. You know, I would like to see 40 or 50
Mm-hmm.
candidates
Mm-hmm.
because we need priests. We need them. You know, as again, Pope St. John Paul II. You know, without the priest, there's no Eucharist. Without
Right.
the Eucharist, there's no church.
Right.
So we really need to have these young people. I say the young people are more traditional. The ones that are coming forward now, a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more traditional, but good guys, happy guys,
Mm-hmm.
energetic guys,
Mm-hmm.
and prayerful guys. That's what you want.
How about women religious? Are you seeing any?
No, I'm not seeing a whole lot of change in
Uh,
terms of at least not in the sense of people stepping forward. I mean, orders that had, you know, 10, 20 a
right.
year
Right.
now maybe have 1 or 2, maybe. So there's not a whole lot of.
I wonder if that's because there's not a lot of exposure to even with priests. With priests, I mean, if guys aren't going to mass, there's no
Yeah, if they're not in a
exposure.
Catholic school or they're not going to mass, when do you see a priest? You know,
Exactly. Exactly.
at an opportunity where you could talk or hear from.
Right. To
I
to
don't know.
aspire to that vocation
Yeah, I
without.
don't know with in religious life, you know, what the answer is.
Mm, mm,
I think we have wonderful examples of good religious consecrated women
mm-hmm.
in the diocese here. But I know when I first came, there were over 200 that were active.
Mm-hmm.
And in our last count, it was 26.
Wow.
And that's just over the course of 15 years,
My.
the last
Mm,
15
wow.
years.
Wow.
Now, it may be that when I first came, among those 200, there were a lot of retirement age
Mm,
sisters who were still working. And it may be now that just, you know, time has caught up with us. And
yeah. Yeah.
we're just seeing the numbers diminish. But, you know, religious life is a beautiful life and certainly worth considering. But sometimes I think that what you're saying may be true, that we just don't see religious women and to the degree that we were aware of them before. And
Right.
so they don't know of that.
We
as
mentioned Catholic schools. I mean, when I was taught by the Sister of Charity, the Carmelites, they were always there. They were part of
Yeah.
the school.
Oh,
they
yeah,
were
present, very
they
present.
were very present.
You know, I was in a parish one time and I said to the servers, all boys and girls who were
Yeah.
serving the Mass, I says to the boys, I said, did you ever think about the priesthood? And I said to the girls, did you ever think about, I used the word, did you ever think about becoming a nun?
Mm-hmm.
They had no idea what I was talking about.
Yeah, and
They
that's-
never heard that expression before.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because that's what we called it.
Sure.
They maybe weren't technically or canonically nuns,
Right.
but we all called them the
We all
nuns.
called them
Oh,
nuns,
we're going
yeah.
over to the nuns.
Right.
But they don't use that expression so much that people are familiar with
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
it's a shame. We got to, but I think the thing is, who's promoting or fostering vocations?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have a vocation director, and we have an excellent vocation director who's doing a very good job. But a lot of times, he says the obstacle is sometimes the parents or the,
The family,
grandparents.
yeah.
The family doesn't promote or foster it,
Mm-hmm.
and
Or pray for it.
pray for it. Yeah, you can see it. If someone's an only child
Mm-hmm.
and they want grandchildren and so forth, you can understand it.
Yeah.
But the life is such a beautiful and important life, so
Yeah.
you want it fostered.
Yeah, and pray for it. I think of now. I have two grandsons and two granddaughters, and I just pray, Lord, if there's a call there, let them see it eventually.
Yeah, I pray for it every day, and even at Mass, we have the prayer of the faithful with those petitions.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't have a petition for vocation to the priesthood or religious life, I put it in there.
Yeah.
I'll make it one of the petitions because it's so important. We desperately need priests and religious to help us to continue the work that we have, the evangelization that's ours.
And you have mentioned retirement. There probably are priests in our own diocese here that are getting close to retirement age.
Oh, getting close. There's a lot of, about 60 guys retired.
Wow.
And, we have the villa for St. John Vianney here in Lawrenceville. There's about 20-some guys in it, 20 plus. And I opened a villa in Manasquan, and that's a smaller villa. That can only sustain 6. It only has 6 suites for priests. 3 of them are occupied at this time. If it weren't for the retired priests in the diocese, I don't know what we do, because they're so generous and helpful to the priests who have parish. The advantage of being retired is you don't have the administrative stuff.
Right.
But it's great to just stay in touch with communities and celebrate masses around the diocese, and a lot of our guys do. In fact, some of our priests, some of our parishes are served by priests who are retired from other dioceses in New Jersey.
Oh, really?
Yeah, their families might have had a house at the shore.
Yeah.
And parents are gone, but they left the house to the priest from Newark or Patterson or Metuchen or Camden or what have you. And so they're there living, and they want to continue to exercise their priestly ministry. So they're wonderful, so generous with us.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, it's nice that they do that, because I know Cheryl in her work up at St. Magdalene in Flemington, same thing. There's a priest that comes down from Seton Hall, a retired priest. Had a couple of heart attacks this past year, but still comes down. He's faithful and says the masses for him and helps out the pastor, because without that help, I mean, a pastor has to, just saying. I had one time had a priest tell me saying mass is physically draining if you pray it the right way, for a priest. That it can take, physically almost.
Maybe so. I mean, I never find it that way. I always find celebration of Mass, no matter what's going on in my life, I always find it a joyful and a moving experience. When you think of what you're doing, you think of what's happening, and that you are God's instrument for doing that. It's a very humbling thing. It really is.
Is there a limit to how many masses a priest can say on any given
On a day? Yes. There's the canon law has a limit, but the bishop can make adjustments to that. Some parishes, they have 3 or 4 masses and 1 priest. So you have to give extended permissions for that. Because usually it's 1 mass per day. Exception would be 2 masses a day. But
and most priests, that's their minimum.
That's
2 masses,
minimum,
right?
They travel around. The priests are great. I'm telling you, we are, and especially here in Trenton, we're so lucky to have the priests we have. We'd have, and of course the people are wonderful. I find every parish I go, I don't find, the crisis in the church. I don't find that's the feeling that people have there. Those who go to Mass are happy to go to Mass, and they're happy to see you, and they're happy to greet you, and.
Well, you mentioned Christmas. Masses were packed. I mean, so that's a good sign if they come back. But you want to offer that welcoming environment to them, both as a pastor and a priest and a parishioner.
I had a young man visit me. He was a graduate of one of our high schools, and he came today. Wanted to text me, "Can I come and see you?" And he said to me, "How can I be better at my faith?" And I said, "Isn't that a beautiful? This kid is 19 years old.
Yeah.
Getting ready for his second year of post high school experience. How can I be better at my faith?"
Yeah,
beautiful thoughts in this.
So maybe he's discerning. maybe he's feeling a call.
I think he's discerning having a family.
Oh, okay. All right.
Which is
Which
great
is a
too.
great
Having a
vocation.
good Catholic family is
That's
a
right.
vocation too.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But, well, but you
I
never
went
know.
in for the kill, but I didn't. I didn't think I was getting too far with that proposal.
Well, I one time asked my spiritual director, and this is probably within maybe 20 years ago, about considering the diaconate. And he said, "No, the Lord he wants you to do what you're doing now on
Yeah,
the radio. That's your vocation." And actually, this is my 30th year of Catholic radio. I've been doing it.
Wow, boy!
Back in
Congratulations.
1995, did my first Catholic radio program.
We're
So,
very lucky. We have a lot of interest in the diaconate in the
Yeah.
diocese. Men who are married and have families,
Yeah.
and they're looking for a little bit more
mhm.
in their religious life.
Yeah,
And they're willing to do the studies. They're willing to take the time. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
yeah,
And I always enjoy ordination and seeing them there and with such great devotion
hmm
to the church.
yeah,
It's wonderful, wonderful. to see.
yeah. Well, we're very blessed with. I mentioned my nephew, my godson, Deacon John, up there in St. Paul's.
Oh
who-
yeah,
who
yeah.
was
He,
ordained.
I think his wife is. His. I don't think it. I know it. She works for the Monitor.
Yeah, she does. Emily,
does
sure.
it.
Yeah, yeah. She writes for the Monitor.
Very good.
Yeah,
Very good.
yeah. So it's nice to have that.
Yeah,
in the
John. I
family.
like seeing John when I go up there on St. Paul's.
No, it's nice now when we get together for holidays, Christmas, where he'll say grace and give us all the blessing. It's nice that we have that.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, they just got the new sound system at St. Paul, and beautiful. It's so nice when you can hear everything at Mass,
Yes.
especially for those of us who are starting to get a little weak in the hearing.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So that's when you mentioned that too, and I was thinking this not in one of our parishes here in the diocese, but a few years ago I was somewhere where you had a lector, reader who was you just very soft and very low, and you couldn't. And you really have to be able to listen to the word and hear it proclaimed.
absolutely. And it's very
effectively.
frustrating to people. It's one of the things that I think about sometimes when I'm talking with our international priests. And I say, this is not intended to be offensive, but you have an accent, and it's maybe not. Some people are not used to it,
Mm-hmm.
so you have to be more deliberate. And I've actually been with some priests and have practiced with them in the pulpit. Maybe that's going too far. I'm not usual, but how to use a microphone and
Yeah.
how to speak into a microphone
Right.
and so on and so forth.
Is that? I'm sure that's part of seminary training, right?
Oh yeah. We have. I would say we had homiletics, the subject homiletics, how to give homilies.
Mm-hmm.
4 years out of my 4 years in the seminary, so we had every year,
Yeah.
and they took a different focus. 1 year it was how to give spiritual conferences.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you always were preaching on the Sunday readings
Yeah. Yeah.
and practicing. We actually had a video camera.
Oh, so you can see.
So you were filmed
Mhm.
while you were speaking, and then
Yeah.
the professor would point out, well, see, you're doing this, and you turn your head here, you use more gestures, use less gestures. So there is training in homiletics, and some people are better at it than others,
Mhm.
Not everybody can be Johnny Carson.
That's
I say that to people, I say, oh, the homilies are so, well, you got to give the guys a break. They
That's
do the
right.
best they can.
That's right. That's right. Well, Bishop, our time is up. Again, want to thank you for coming by on this first brand new program of the new year,
Yeah,
and we'll look
first
forward
Friday.
to a great year of hope.
It's going to be a great year of hope, and it's going to be a blessing to this diocese and to all who are listening to us. Fan the flames of hope is what the Pope said in his letter, and I think that's what we all have to do.
Amen. All right, we'll talk to you next month. Thank
All
you,
right,
Bishop.
thank you.
God
Bye-bye.
bless you.